Good morning, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Finding God in the Dark podcast. My name is Don.
And my name is Jonathan.
And this morning we are going to be talking about was this a 2006 film, if
Yeah,
I'm correct, right?
yeah.
2006 film called Stranger Than Fiction. It is directed by Mark Forster, written by Zach Helm. And I wanted to note, we don't usually note the writers, but
Yeah,
I really wanted to note the writer here
yeah, yeah, yeah,
because we will get into this. This is an exceptionally well-written film.
yeah.
Um, it stars Will Ferrell, Maggie Gyllenhaal, Dustin Hoffman, Emma Thompson, Queen Latifah, among others. One of the ones names that I went, I know that name, but where do I know it from? Thomas Hulse, who played Mozart
Yep.
in Amadeus,
Nowadays. Yep. Yeah, yeah,
but I didn't recognize him in the film. I just saw him in the credits.
yeah.
Um, uh, okay, basic premise
Yep.
that is about a man who lives a fairly ordinary life. He's an IRS agent. He lives alone. He's very methodical about all the things that he does in his life. And he starts hearing a voice narrating his life,
Yeah,
comes to realize that he is a character in a book,
yeah.
and then tries to resolve that tension and meet the
Meet
author.
the
And
author and all that stuff.
yeah. Um, Personally, I just want to say this is the first time I've watched this, and Jonathan, you say it's the third time you've watched this film.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, there aren't a lot of times when I'm just like itching to. I like talking about the
yeah,
films,
yeah,
but this one I was, like when I finished watching it last night, I was like, I I want to talk about this like
yeah,
now. It was
yep, yep,
really.
absolutely.
I was surprised at how good it was, particularly considering I don't like Will Ferrell. Oh, I think
Yeah, I know.
most of
I
his
knew that.
characters, most of his
Yeah,
acting is one note, and I don't really care for him.
yeah,
But he's very good in
yeah,
this. Um, so
yeah.
let's get on the
Yes.
themes. Where do you want to start with the themes, John?
Um. Well, I mean, I think. Geez, so much here. I think it's kind of interesting, probably as pastors, to talk about the idea of what does it mean to live a quality life, because that's a theme of the film.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah.
because when we
Did
first
you
meet
did you note, by
Harold,
the way? I don't know if you caught this, that the last names of all of the major characters in this film are like prominent scientists. Crick,
yeah,
Pascal,
Cal, yeah,
scientists and
yes, I
thinkers.
did. I didn't really sit down to figure out what it meant. I thought it was interesting that the love interest, her last name is Pascal, and Pascal is known for developing gaming theory, I believe, in mathematics. But he's best known, I would argue, because of his theology idea around the idea of the wager of God, basically.
Pascal's wager,
So,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Which, for those who don't know, Pascal's wager is if God exists and I believe, then I win everything. If
yeah,
God doesn't exist and I believe, I lose nothing.
yeah,
So, yeah,
yeah,
that's it. Which, okay, I didn't get too far into what that means for her and the
yeah.
relationship with him or anything
I
like
didn't
that,
either,
but
but yeah, you're right. There probably is another layer or two of this movie if we want to unpack it. So,
yeah, for sure. There's that's why I wanted to note the author Zach Helm, because there's definitely more here than even we'll get a chance to talk about.
yeah,
Um, which the funny thing to me is, okay, this film came out 19 years ago.
yeah,
Um, I never heard about it, never saw it. Apparently, the advertising, the campaign for this film was terrible
yeah.
or something. I don't know.
I honestly think it's hard. I can understand it's hard to advertise for this movie because it's not a conventional movie. It's this kind
No.
of weird this weird thought experiment, and and I also think probably people were so used to silly Will Ferrell that the idea of this kind of, it is a comedy, but it's kind of a deep thinking comedy,
Yeah.
and that's just not something people may have wanted from him. You know,
I might even challenge you a little bit on it being a comedy.
yeah,
One of the main storylines in the film is Harold is the main character, and his conversation with Dustin Hoffman's character. He is um, a, lit,
literary. He's a
a
literary
literary
professor.
professor, right?
Yeah.
And the big part of that conversation is him trying to figure out if Harold is the main character in a story, what kind of story is it?
Is it a
And I think in a
comedy or
lot of ways you
tragedy?
can challenge that with the film. What kind of film is it? Is it a romantic comedy? Is it a deep thinking film? Is it,
I
is it a tragedy?
I
You know?
kind of read that as it's life. That life is all of those things, right? Life is comedy. Life
Sure.
is falling in love and also facing your death. It's things falling apart and great moments of joy. So I kind of read that as he was kind of making a critique of life is both comedy and tragedy. So
Yeah. And I can go with you on that. I think it's interesting because it's almost like that discussion parallels the very essence of the movie. Um,
yeah, I
so
mean, I like this idea of what does it mean to live a life? What does it mean to live a good life? And to me, that's at the essence of, if it's not at the essence of Christianity, it's at the essence of how you disciple people, right?
hmm,
Part of it is helping them really look at themselves and say, okay, what does it mean to live a good life, and how can I structure my life and train myself to live into that kind of reality?
yeah, I think you're onto something there. There's how much do we care about giving away things here? It is a 19-year-old movie,
I'm
so
going to say we need to give it, again, spoiler alert, it's a 19-year-old movie.
spoiler alert, spoiler alert.
Yeah,
Um, because the what we find out, when we find out who the author is, and when Hoffman's character finds out who the author is, and then they get a draft copy of the book,
yeah,
and you find out, well, Harold, you're going to die, you
yeah,
know. And I think this is this really poignant scene when
yeah,
Harold goes to him and he says, like, did you read it? Yeah, I read it. And you have to die.
yeah,
But I don't want to die. No, you have to die.
yeah,
But as the conversation goes on, he gets to, like, at some point you're going to die anyway. You're going to die of a heart attack, or you're going to die sick in a hospital, or whatever it is. But this death in this book has meaning.
and it will live on, and yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah,
and to connect with that, I loved when the literary professor who advises Harold to just accept it and have this meaningful death in the story that will live on, even though he'll die. When he finally interacts with the author and they have a conversation, I loved the idea. She goes, like, because Harold comes to her and after he reads it and says, it's okay, finish your book,
yeah.
you know, and
He
her
he
response,
accepts that he's going to die. Yeah.
yeah, he accepts he's going to die, and her response to the Desmond Hoffman character, I thought was just kind of brilliant about he is willing to die even in the face of death. Isn't that the people we want to keep alive? You know,
Yeah, that was great. I
yeah,
mean, like I said, I'm good. I feel like I'm kind of gushing about this film, but more people should see this. This is a really good movie, you
yeah,
know?
it's it is really good. I don't know what spoke to me. I think the idea of we often get we often get trapped in our routines and we don't actually enjoy life. And to me, that's part of this movie too. Of
Yeah.
like, he clearly wanted to learn guitar, but he never took that initiative. He clearly wanted to be in a relationship, but he never sought it
It,
out. Like,
it was almost if there was no room because he had regimented his life in such a way, there was no room for those other things that he wanted to do,
yeah, yeah,
you know? And
yeah,
and so when he's that, I think that's the cool thing. The turning point here is that once he's faced with and accepts that he's going to die,
yeah,
the first moment that you see that is that they stay in the beginning, how he brushed his teeth so many times, this many times up and down, this many times back and forth,
yeah,
and then he finally he you see that turning point with the teeth brushing where he just finally goes,
yeah.
like, whatever, I'm not going to count anymore.
To me, I guess what maybe is why I resonated with it is I like movies that make me think about my own life. Like I shut them off and then I go like, what does this say about me? Or what how should I change?
Hmm.
Or and to me
Where
this
does
movie,
it challenge you, right? Where
yeah,
does it push you?
this movie really hit me about like, are you actually living your life? Are you actually going after the things you want, or are you allowing yourself to be walled off in routine because it's safer and easier?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah. Well,
that that really challenged me, I think, in a lot of ways. What else connected for you?
well, let's see. Uh, in that same scene
Yeah,
with when the author meets the literary professor,
yeah,
um, the professor says to her, where he had thought the original ending that
was
she'd
a
written like in
masterpiece.
hand was a masterpiece. He says this, it's okay, and
Yeah,
she says, I'm all right with okay.
yeah. Yeah, I again, I think it's this idea of, well, I can't remember there's a famous phrase and I'm can't bring it to mind, but basically, don't allow the perfect to be the enemy of the good.
That's
Like
the phrase. You got it.
sometimes we so want our lives perfect that we miss really good things that we could be a part of that aren't perfect. You know,
Or just living in the moment. It
yeah,
doesn't even have to be the perfect moment, but just being in the moment,
the
you
moment.
know.
That idea. It's not as much. It is a part of Christianity, but it's much clearer in Buddhism. But that's why there's such a focus on meditation in Buddhism, because for them, the only thing that's true is in the moment that you're in, and
Yeah.
so you need to do everything you can to be present in that moment.
And
And there's deep truth to that.
yeah, you see that in there's a scene earlier in the film
Yeah,
when Will Ferrell's character, Crick,
yeah,
Harold Crick, um, is realizing that he likes this woman who he was supposed to be doing an audit on,
yeah,
Maggie Gyllenhaal's character. And he's finishing up the day doing the audit on her stuff, and she makes him cookies, and she says, "Would you like a cookie?" He says, "I don't like cookies."
yeah. I know. Yeah,
But then
my son.
he realizes that she made them for
Yeah,
him.
for him, man.
So he sits down and he has one, and like it's that kind of almost perfect encapsulation of just being in the moment, you
Yeah,
know?
my middle child recently said, "I just don't like burgers." And I looked at him and I went like, or no, he goes, "I hate burgers." And I looked at him and I think I almost said exactly what the Gyllenhaal character said, like, "What's wrong with you? Like, like, how can you hate burgers? Like, okay, they're not your favorite food, but hate them, really? Like,
We have burgers a lot in my house because my kids like them.
yeah,
I could eat them less. I'd be okay. But yeah, I think that's a really, there's several moments like that. And then later like he messed that up at that point, right?
yeah,
And then later he kind of makes up for it. He comes back with like a whole box of wrapped flowers for her, and it's just this kind of sweet. I mean, there's that whole look, I'm not a romantic comedy guy. It's not my kind of film.
yeah, yeah,
But this has more to it than that. And that. that part of it is just kind of, a very sweet kind of layer in the
Yeah.
film that I think has a lot more depth to it.
Yeah, I think if you look at this kind of, if you layered out all the characters, the primary characters, well, even in the secondary ones, um, but there is kind of a interplay for all of them about they're holding back from actually living the life they want to live.
Yeah.
Like that, like even the Gyllenhaal character, who's probably the most kind of developed in that way. Um, there's just this sense from everybody that, like the literary professor clearly loves the work of the author, but won't try to find her. And the author loves this guy's letters who's writing to her, but she won't engage him. And so there's this constant, every character is kind of holding back from actually living.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, there's also like these little kind of side things that you do. So, like the literary professor is also a swimming coach,
Yeah.
I think. And so there's like that thing that maybe was something, maybe an unfulfilled need in his life that he just finds a way to involve that in
Yeah.
somehow.
Yeah.
They were all, again, we've got layered characters, we've
Yeah.
got depth of characterization that you don't see in a lot of romantic comedies. A lot of romantic comedies are kind of, cardboard cutout characters.
Yeah.
Um, so what else do we got here?
One of the
Good.
one of my favorite scenes is, we talked about it kind of, but not in the way I want to discuss it. Is the Gyllenhaal character, Miss Pascal,
Hmm.
which I think it's interesting that there's kind of a deep shift in the movie when he stops calling her Miss Pascal and starts calling her Anna.
Yeah.
There's kind of this kind of shift in the movie, which I thought was interesting. Uh,
Hmm.
but anyway, um, there's a quote from Parker Palmer, who's a well-known, pastoral theologian, that says in a book, "Find where your passion meets the world's needs." And he was basically arguing that's where God's calling you to be. And I love the scene where she talks about she was in law school,
Yeah.
and in law school she found her favorite part of law school was making desserts for her fellow students to study, and so many people came to the study group because of the amazing treats she made that it became like 30, 40 people. And she realized if she was going to change the world, she wasn't going to change it by being a lawyer, she was going to change it by baking. And I love that scene because that speaks to that idea of Parker Palmer's, where find what you're passionate about and then find where it hits the world's need, and that's where you're meant to be.
Yeah. Yeah. That was neat. Um, so you wrote something about the scene where the Harold is sitting in his home, and I think he was, I don't know, daydreaming or something, and then a crane crashed through the wall. Did you see some kind of symbolism that I missed?
Um, I think I think for me it was just, to me it was interesting because again it talked about right before that the literary professor says, um, let's try to stop the movement of the plot. And so he goes, just go home and do nothing. And he goes, maybe the plot will find you. And then to me, it's a reminder. To me, it was an interesting reminder of you can attempt to avoid life, but you're still going to have to live life.
Life intervenes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
life is rain. Yeah,
Yeah, indeed. Okay, I see that. There was another scene. So it's kind of the first time we meet Emma Thompson's character, the
yeah,
author. She is standing on top of a building.
yeah,
And you get the sense that in some way she's kind of, maybe it's something she's imagining and
yeah,
controlling the people down below.
yeah,
And then she steps off the building
yeah,
and then wakes up
yeah,
or comes to her senses and she's standing on her desk in her office.
There's a couple times, again, she's an author who specializes in tragedies, and all of her books, the primary character who you've fallen in love with through the book, she kills in a way that's very poetic, right? That's her thing. And so several times in the movie, she's thinking about ways to die, and that's one of the times she's thinking about ways to die. And I just thought it was interesting, the Queen Latifah character, who's her assistant, she goes, everybody thinks about jumping off buildings. And her assistant character goes, no, they don't.
No, they don't. Yeah, exactly.
And
Look,
yeah,
we might, we might, I think it'd be fair to say that there's probably something in all of us that at some time or another has
yeah,
considered, what would happen if,
yes, yeah,
not necessarily jumping off a building, but
yeah,
you understand. I'm not going to
yeah,
get
yeah,
into that, but,
yeah,
um, but yeah, no, she's right. No, we don't all think about that. But then it's interesting because that's kind of a running theme with Emma Thompson's character is this trying to investigate death and the ways that people die. She goes to the ER and she takes it, I think it's the ER, right? She's in the
yeah,
hospital.
yeah,
But she's all the people here are getting better. Where are the people who are dying?
yeah. Well, and I don't know,
Oh my goodness.
you of course have the same experience I do. We've both been to difficult funerals and good
Yeah,
funerals, and
it's true.
that has nothing to do. Honestly, most people that are outside of what we do would think the hard funerals are always the ones that are someone who died young or someone who died tragically. But to me, when I say the hard funerals, I mean the ones where no one really has anything positive to say about the person, or no one really can point to how this life shaped other people. That to me, those are the hard ones. I
Yeah.
don't know how you feel, but those to
Yeah.
me, those are the hard ones.
I mean, look, I'm sure you've had the same situation where I've done funerals for young people for
Yeah,
a baby,
yeah,
or for someone who was extremely well loved or
yeah,
tragically died or whatever, and those are difficult in a sense, without
yeah.
a doubt.
Yes, absolutely.
But you're right. I think it's tougher when like you get called. I don't know if you do this. I get called sometimes
Yeah,
for funerals just randomly.
yeah,
The funeral home says the family wants a pastor, and so you go and do it.
yeah,
Um, and so I try to garner as much information as I can from the
yeah,
family, but for me, the best part of that is to let the family talk a little bit about their loved one. And when I'm doing one of those and the family has nothing to share,
yeah.
that's awkward. And yeah, those are rough.
Yeah, and it's not a matter. It's not a matter of, did 50 people speak or 5 people speak, but it's a matter of like when they speak, what do they say? And
Yeah.
there are times where only maybe one person speaks, but that one person loved the person who died, and that person that their life was shaped positively and in powerful ways by the person that was gone. And there are some times where people are just like, yeah, I don't know what to say because I didn't really like this person. Like, and those are the ones that are just like, oh. And it made me think of there's an exercise in um, highly effective habits of um, 7 highly effective habits of succeeders or whatever. I don't know what the title is. I can't remember. But Covey recommends that you do a eulogy exercise where you think about the people that would show up to your funeral, and then you say what you would like them to say about you. And then his argument is then live into what you want them to say.
Yeah. I've heard that before. Yeah.
And it's similar to another writer talked about it in a similar way in another book. But to me, that's really a powerful exercise, and most people don't do that work. And you probably, like me, can tell people when you do, I've probably done close to 100 funerals now. Um,
Sure.
the real thing that you see is so much of what we focus on in life, no one talks about at the funeral. I have
You
never had anybody stand up and go, "Man, Bob had a great big beautiful house," and or "Oh my God, he had 5 cars." Like nobody says those things. Like nobody.
Bob was Bob was the guy that beat Dungeon Siege in an hour on PlayStation.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like so much of the stuff we worry about, fret about, focus our lives around. Um, Nobody talks about at a funeral.
Yeah,
Nobody.
yeah.
Um, and I, the other way I've heard this used is um, David Brooke puts it this way. Um, he says, "Live for your eulogy, not for your resume." And again, to me,
Yeah.
this
I
movie
hear.
really leads into that conversation because when Harold finally starts living, it isn't because he got a bigger title and more money at the IRS. It isn't that he brought down somebody with an audit. It's he's opened himself up for love, and he learned how to play the guitar, and he learned to take some time off and relax. I mean, that's when his life.
That's all it is. Yeah, he started living a life that wasn't focused on his routine,
Yeah,
right? Um, yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I can gush about this film an awful lot.
yeah,
Um, what else? Green through the wall. Um, there's an element here I think is interesting. Have you seen the film Crash?
yes, long
Okay.
time ago. But yeah, I
Yeah,
did.
me too. Long time ago. Um, there's a similar kind of feel to this in
Yeah,
that there are these little storylines, and you see kind of snippets of people's lives all along the way, and then they all kind of converge at the end
yeah,
when Harold dies.
yeah.
Except he,
Doesn't.
spoiler alert, doesn't die. But
Well,
you
yeah,
know,
she even says it in the interview that we hear in the background. This new book she's writing that she hadn't written, it had been 10 years, but is about interconnectedness. So it's about this idea that you dropping an apple could lead to somebody being hurt, or you being a few minutes late could lead to you saving somebody's life. You know, that idea of
you
being
know,
interconnected, you know.
I think there's also I think something to say here regarding the hero of the film.
Yeah,
The hero of the film is his watch.
yeah,
And that's all about time,
yeah,
and it's all about time and timing.
yes,
So if you happen to be inspired by our discussion, hallelujah, and go and watch this film,
yeah,
um, pay attention to that,
yeah.
the time and the timing, because it is a theme that runs through the whole film, and it's about this.
Well,
Which
it's that idea that every moment matters, right? That
yeah,
that things that there's a world in a thousand different directions because of the things we choose to do or not do in the moment.
yeah, yeah. So we're getting a little close to time. I think there's probably a few other things we could definitely talk about here. But maybe that's for another day. We do want to talk about what we will do this week to talk about next week.
Yeah, it's your turn. So what do you want?
Well, um, I so when I was on vacation, I got sick. I ended up in the hospital for a couple of days after vacation, not actually when I was on vacation. So I got an extended vacation in the hospital. Is that a vacation? Anyway, uh,
I can answer you. No, no, it's not.
um, But then I was under doctor's orders to not drive myself home from South Carolina. So I had to wait for my daughter to finish work that week. So, I was sitting at her house working on my sermon. But in the evening, we went out and saw a movie
Okay.
that I would love to talk about if you haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen it yet. I think I know what you're talking about, but yeah,
Yeah, the film's called Weapons.
yeah,
It is still in theaters, I believe.
yeah.
It is a Zach Kreger film. Now, Zach Kreger did Barbarian. If you haven't seen that, it's not required watch for Weapons. It's not like they're in the same universe like Marvel or anything like that. But um, it is it's a dark. I think they're listing technically as a horror film, but it's very much kind of a dark comedy with some gore in it.
Okay.
Um, I will say, I know that your big pet peeve with horror movies is when people do stupid stuff. When people do stupid stuff in this film, it's for a reason. I don't think you'll be quite so turned off by it. It
Yeah,
really, I want to get your take on it
yeah.
because
No,
it's,
I've heard good things. So yeah,
yeah. My daughter and I, Tristan and I went and saw it, and we both really liked it. I thought it was. I mean, people are calling it a masterpiece. I don't know if it's a masterpiece,
yeah,
but it is good and it is engaging, and there's quite a bit of depth to it. And if just a heads up, if you go to see it if you go
yeah.
see it this week, right? Have you seen Memento?
Long time ago, but yeah.
So it's structured a lot like that, where it tells the story of one character
Okay.
up to a point, and then it backs up and picks up another character and tells their story and how they overlap, and
Okay.
so I think that's a really interesting way to tell it, to do a horror film.
Sure.
So good. Then we'll talk about Weapons next week. That's it. Yeah. I've been wanting to talk about it since I saw it. So
Okay.
because I just think there's a lot of depth to that film. It's not just if people have seen the I'm gushing again, but if people have seen the trailer, the basic premise is 17 kids all from one classroom disappear in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
What happened to them? And it's more of a kind of a creepy horror film. Anything that's kind of gory doesn't really happen until like the last act. So, um, yeah, I enjoyed it. So let's watch that next. We'll talk about that next Friday. Anything else to say about Stranger Than Fiction?
If you have Prime, it's worth the 2 hours. So yeah,
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I'm probably there's a part of me that's gone, I need to watch it again because I maybe not wasn't even paying enough attention.
yeah.
Um
I'm going to encourage other people to see it because I really do think it's a very deep film. So
and again, surprisingly, not what you expect from Will Ferrell.
no, not at all.
Um it's I'll compare it a little bit to when Jim Carrey went from doing Ace Ventura to Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Yeah,
That
good
kind of thing.
comparison. Yeah,
It's not what you expect, and it's very good.
yeah.
So, all right, friends, that's going to be it for this week. Until next week, keep on finding God in the dark. We will see you all next Friday. Take care and God bless. Oh, hey, you made it all the way to the end of the video. Well, thanks for watching. We appreciate your support. And friends, if you find anything that's really wonderful or entertaining or helpful in your Christian walk, we want to encourage you to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share this video with your friends. We publish every Friday morning at 10 a.m. And we hope that you continue to find these videos and these discussions entertaining and informative. Take care and God bless. Bye.